our nation is divided at this time. And it's divided because you have two opposing worldviews. You have two different ways in which people view our constitutional republic and what defines it, what it should be about, its core values, its domestic policy, its foreign policy, and the laws that govern the land. And so you have two opposing factions with regard to the course and direction of our nation and what that should look like moving forward well into the 21st century. And I would say just like I would echo the sentiment of people like Sean Hannity and others, as well as a host of others. This is probably the single most important election in this nation's history.
Are you ready for another episode of Torc's Coffee and Chat? Hey, thanks for tuning in again. My guest today, I have had him on before. Go back and look at some of the shows that we've done on government. It's my good buddy, Bryan Burrage. So I'm not going to introduce him again here, but I am super pumped up to have him on today because we are going to get into some good stuff, and I know it's going to be a good episode. So without any further ado, we got a lot to get to, so let's get right to it. Brother Bryan, how are you, man?
Good to be back. I'm rejoicing always.
What do you know the requirement to be on the show is you have to have a drink. Doesn't happen.
You know I do.
You're like
it's all about water at this stage of the game.
You're like Cyrus. You're not a coffee guy.
Not so much.
I got my coffee.
Have
you heard of our beautiful Tim Hortons over here in the Eastlands?
No, I have not.
Oh, no, I have not. You are missing out. But you're not a coffee guy.
Not a coffee guy. You know,
you got Steeple House over there, but you don't take advantage of it.
Nah, I'm not a Starbucks, coffee.
Oh, forget Starbucks. I'm talking about Steeple House on the campus.
Not that either. Nah. Give me some water, and I get up, and I'm ready to get the engines going and motors moving, and I'm ready to go. I don't need it.
Water's good. I always say my mom always tells me to drink more water, so I try. Water's good for you. Well, I like the hat, by the way. I like the hat. That's going to kind of segue in. Now, Bryan, this is the first time we've done the program with the video, so I'm upgrading my technology here, and so I'm very excited about that. And so this is the first time you're live on video. We've had your voice before, but we've never had you live on video, so that's kind of cool. And I want to refer our viewers to our conversations, because in our last several conversations, Bryan, we didn't really talk about, at least not in focus, the actual issues of the day. Because we wanted to set up a framework of, okay, what's government in the first place? And we want to set up a framework for the kind of discussion that we're having today. So I would refer those that are listening to those conversations on what government is and what government does to get a foundation for everything we're about to say today. Because, Bryan, here's the thing. There are more foundational things we can talk about, but we've got, 6 days? Until
not even 6 days.
Not even
Today's
6 days.
Thursday, you've got 4 days.
So
if Thursday's gone, you've got Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. You've got 4 days. Tuesday's election day. Today's gone. Today's behind us.
And by the time I get this up, and believe me, I might be burning the midnight oil with my Tim Hortons coffee, to this online, because if we can influence a few people, that would be well worth it. So Bryan, without any further ado, as they say, let us get right to it and let us pull no punches. We've got an election coming up, and a lot of people have a lot of different thoughts. I want to hand this over to you, and I'll comment in when it's appropriate. What are the issues we face in this election? What comes to the forefront? And are you at all, I know you are because we've talked, but why are you concerned about the possible direction that this country might go in? So I'm just going to hand it over to you, bro.
Well, wow, there's a lot there.
A lot there.
Obviously, our nation is divided at this time. And it's divided because you have two opposing worldviews. You have two different ways in which people view our constitutional republic and what defines it, what it should be about, its core values, its domestic policy, its foreign policy, and the laws that govern the land. And so you have two opposing factions with regard to the course and direction of our nation and what that should look like moving forward well into the 21st century. And I would say just like I would echo the sentiment of people like Sean Hannity and others, as well as a host of others. This is probably the single most important election in this nation's history to date. Obviously, we were saying that in 2016. The stakes couldn't be higher here in 2020 because, in my mind, you have a political party. You have a political party that is trying to move this constitutional republic. And this is what it's been stated with their own words, with their own policy proposals. So they're not backing off of it. They're not equivocating. They're being very clear about the direction they want to take this nation. And I'm very concerned about that because they're trying to move this country from its historical moorings of a constitutional republic to something that mirrors a European model of socialism. And I would even take it a step further, because even a European model of socialism doesn't have the level of censorship and press issues that we see in our nation today. And so that concerns me. I mean, I would say we're the United States. I would have never dreamed would be a Marxist, a nation that would be advocating Marxism.
No, you quizzed me.
Marxism.
You quizzed me earlier. What are the 5 freedoms we have in the Constitution? And they're all in the first article.
First Amendment.
The First Amendment. The freedom of, okay, let's do it. Freedom of press.
Freedom of the press. The press is supposed to be exercising oversight over our government. They're supposed to be reporting to the American people what is going on with our government. The press has the right to report the facts about the government, the nation, the condition of the government and the direction of the nation to the American people. Because remember, it was the founding fathers' intention, the people that set up this country, that this would be a government of the people, that was by the people, and it was working on behalf or for the people. And so in order for the government to function properly, it is assumed that the people are informed. And when I look at the American voting public, when I look at the average person that goes and casts ballot votes, when I look at the overwhelming majority of Americans, people are misinformed. People are grossly ill-informed about the issues. They're underinformed. And the reason why is because you've had a press that's been derelict in their duty, their constitutional duty in terms of that First Amendment right. Especially when you see censorship from Twitter and Facebook and these tech giants that hold monopolies on information. And they're obviously, with this latest situation with the Hunter Biden, the New York Post posting on Twitter and Facebook revelation about Hunter Biden receiving cash payments from these foreign governments, Ukraine, Russia, China, Romania, a number of others. And the question is why? Well, they're influence peddling. All this took place while Joe Biden was president of the United States. And they're selling influence.
Right.
The American public has a right to know about that going into the election. The American people have a right to know about one of the major party candidates and what they've been doing in terms of their entire political career before they nominate him potentially to be the next leader of this nation. And for the press to censor that information, to silence it, for the mainstream media of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, on and on and on, NPR, PBS, you name it, USA Today, for them to squelch that, for them to not even report on it. And this is the second major story that they've just ignored. And they've ignored it because they're obviously biased in favor and in support of one particular political party. That is not what the founders intended for this nation.
Right. Now, Bryan, can I just take us a step outside this for a moment? Just think about it logically for a moment, because I want people to understand the point. It's not even necessarily that this witness that's come forward, Tony Bobulinski, am I saying that right? Bobulinski?
Yeah, Bobulinski.
Yeah, though there seems to be a lot of credibility to this, the point is not even necessarily.
He's a former business partner.
Yeah, exactly.
This isn't a side player.
Right.
This isn't someone who had an interest. This is a business partner, a co-business partner with Joe Biden, of Hunter Biden, who met Joe Biden personally with regard to Burisma Holdings.
So my point is if there was something of this weight that came up against Donald Trump, I want to ask friends and family of mine, my dear friends and family that are watching this, if you're watching it this far, yes, I'm talking to you. And Bryan, I know you've got people you're thinking of too. Do you honestly think the media would treat this story the same, that they would
absolutely not
the same,
absolutely
that this was
not.
about Donald Trump?
We're dealing with a media that is dishonest, a media that is deceitful, and a media that is.
This would be all they would talk about. It'd be
exactly, because here it is, Sam. You know, we have a saying in this: the proof is in the pudding. All you need to do is look at the false Russia collusion narrative that members of the Trump campaign that the president himself was a Russian asset or agent, and that members of his campaign were actually being used by Russians to conspire to hack into the Democrat National Committee's database, and also to influence the 2016 election in favor of Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton. You've had 3, if not 4, independent, full investigative bodies that participated in a story that the news media took and sold to the American people as if it were fact, if it was factual, if it was factual. And you had the Senate Intelligence Committee that said that there was no American, no member of the Trump campaign colluded with Russians, nor conspired to hack into the DNC web database, nor to rig a 2016 election. Number 2, you had the House Intelligence Committee do the same, conduct the same investigation. Then you had a special counselor, if you remember the Mueller report.
Sure.
You know, Mueller's going to get to the bottom of this.
Right.
What did Robert Mueller conclude? No American, the president himself, no one conspired with Russians. We're talking $35 million, taxpayer dollars later. We're talking 2.5 years of a thorough investigation. And what does Robert Mueller conclude? No American conspired, colluded, the president himself, to hack into the DNC. It was a lie.
That's right.
But yet the media took it and peddled it to the American people as if it were fact. In fact, they used it to continue the phony impeachment. And they're doing so to this day, selling fabrications to the American public that somehow or another the president of the United States is compromised with Russians, and they're the ones that are behind this Russian misinformation. You just had John Ratcliffe last week, the director of the national, what is it, the DNI, the director of the National Intelligence Agency, come forward and say that there's no evidence that Russian disinformation is behind the Hunter Biden laptop story. It's a fabrication, it's a lie. And so you have our media that is willing to, on one hand, report for nearly 3 years that there's Russian collusion. It's based on a false narrative, it's based on a lie, yet they're reporting it. And then you have, on the other hand, a media that is not reporting. When you have factual evidence, you have a laptop, you have emails, you have people who are willing to corroborate those emails, you have a key witness who is a business partner who has direct contact with the parties involved.
And it's barely getting attention. It's barely getting attention.
No, you're wrong. It's not getting any attention.
Okay. I stand corrected.
Attention. They're not touching it. They're not mentioning it. They're calling it misinformation. They're dismissing it. And anything that goes up on Facebook and Twitter, i.e. the New York the New York Post story, it gets censored. It gets squelched.
You see Ted Cruz grill that guy?
This is a threat. If anybody understands anything about America, if there's one word that you could say that defines this country, it's the word freedom. And those freedoms are defined by those 5 freedoms that we have in the First Amendment: press, assembly, petition, religion, and speech.
And they're all connected.
And they're all interconnected. They're interrelated. This is the reason why the founders of this country put them all under one amendment. So when you threaten, you threaten the freedom of religion, it impacts the freedom of speech.
Come on.
The right to free expression. When you threaten the freedom of speech, you threaten a person's right to assemble.
Yes, sir.
And I just say that, you know, going into this election, this is the most important election in this nation's history. Because and I'm going to say it, for those Americans that don't quite understand the threat to this constitutional republic upon the foundation of which it was founded 240 years ago, and how it's functioned throughout that time period. I'm not saying it was perfect. Obviously, I'm a Black American. I understand it was not perfect. But you know what? We can always appeal to that document and look back and say that we are progressing toward a more perfect union. And now you have a political party under the auspices of Democrat. They're Marxist. They want to break up that foundation. They have told you that it is built on systemic racism, which in my mind is a lie. It's not true. They want to say that our institutions are racist. They want to say our history is based on racism, et cetera, so forth. And it is bleeding into the way in which Black Americans and minorities are treated today. And I would say all of those are deceitful lies. They're misleading. And I don't want to go into a history lesson, but I would just say that America has flourished under the constitutional republic that it has been. And we have a political party that says that we need to fundamentally change that. And their ideas fit a totalitarian Marxist government that resembles something of a banana republic, that resembles the former Soviet Union. In
You
fact,
mentioned that earlier.
in fact, I have a book in my study right here about 7 parallels between Nazi Germany and the United States of America. What we are seeing taking place in this nation is what took place in Nazi Germany in the 1920s and 1930s as the Nazi Party gained control of the government. Nazi Germany the Holocaust didn't happen overnight, and what they were doing did not happen in one day.
Yeah, could you expand on that a little bit? Because how did we get Hitler? You know, a lot of people want to compare Trump to Hitler, which is a total disgrace. He's been in power 4 years. Where's the Hitler, everybody? Don't trifle with this.
Well, liars like to accuse people of what they're guilty of.
Come on.
And if you think about Adolf
Fascists
Hitler,
call people fascist. Fascists call people fascist.
Exactly. And you think about Adolf Hitler, the first thing you think is genocide. You think about the Holocaust. Well, who's the one that's perpetrating a Holocaust, a modern day Holocaust in our land with the legalized murder of innocent babies under the false pretense that it's a woman's reproductive right?
Lie.
Yeah, a woman's reproductive right. How ridiculous. You know,
Evil.
So again, liars like to accuse others of what they are lying about. You know, and so there's a world of difference. Obviously, like I said, you have one side that is actually committing the genocide and justifying it as if it were a God-given right. Because you remember, again, this goes back to the foundational moorings of this country. In the founding fathers' minds, the government, the responsibility of government was to secure the rights that came from where?
God.
God. Exactly.
The God-given rights that we have.
The God-given rights. So let me ask you a question. How can a political party lead a nation where its constitution has as its premise that its rights are given by God and are secured by government when you have that political party that wants to erase God from its conscience. When that political party is in rebellion against the decreed will of God. When that political party doesn't even want to mention God, and they are in rejection of God, and they want to promote that as if it should be a normative experience in every person's life. You know, the founding fathers never intended that the free expression of religion be absent from the public forum.
Right.
It is a misunderstanding of our Constitution to talk about a separation of church and state as if that means, as if that means no public expression of religion at all. It's not true.
Right.
It's not true. Every session of Congress has been opened up by prayer since 1776. It's a tradition. And again, I ask the question, how can you have a political party that's in rejection and denial of God and who he is and the rights that he has given human beings, govern a nation that says that government is formed by God to secure the rights that are given by God? So that's one of the concerns that I have about the Democrat Marxist Party. I've actually used to say the Democrat Socialist Party. I've kind of graduated. They're Marxist. You know,
Well, could you
the types of things that we're seeing in our nation right now, they're advocating Marxism. They're advocating full-blown Marxism.
But socialism
and I would just say that
version. Would you say socialism is a softer version of Marxism?
I would say so. I would say so. You know, I would say socialism is a derivative of it. It's an economic system.
Right.
It's an economic system, but Marxism, I would say are the tenets that Karl Marx advocated of being an atheist, that the
gets into everything.
The highest allegiance
Worldview.
a person had. Government actually replaced this God in a Marxist system.
Right.
This is the reason why you have people like Barack Obama saying that government has to be involved in these issues called climate change, because they actually see themselves as taking the place of Almighty God in imposing, in I would say defining,
right,
then imposing and legislating their ideology upon the masses. And that is the antithesis of what the founders intended for this nation. Government was the problem. That's the reason why they formed this constitutional republic, so that government could only be an auxiliary in which to govern, or what was the phrase? To rule at the consent of the governed.
Right.
And in order for that to take place, you've got to have a free press. A free press. And when you have a press that's not free, and when you have a press that's immoral and irresponsible in their constitutional duty, you don't have a free America. You don't have people who are making conscious decisions in which to cast an informed vote, understanding the course and direction of this nation, especially when they're squelching speech. They're favoring one side. They're disseminating what we know to be lies, outright deceitful fabrications and untruth. And they're doing it because they're favoring one party.
Bryan, I want to unpack that for a moment before we hit the break. Because I could see some people thinking, okay, we're saying we're going by the Constitution. We got to have a free press. Well, but then we're also saying
The
that,
press has to be responsible in the
Right.
exercise of their freedom.
right, so that's what I'm trying to get at, and it is honestly a little bit overwhelming. Let me just throw it out there. Does the press have the freedom to lie? Does the press have the freedom to lie then? Do they have the freedom to cover up stories? Because what do we have here? Don't we have certain
Freedom is based on
mediums?
morality.
Let me just finish my thought. Mediums like Twitter silencing mediums like the New York Post. Like what actually is going on? And I think the press is abusing its responsibility, but it's kind of like the freedom of the press gone rogue. Go ahead.
Have you forgotten your history lesson?
Probably.
Who was it that said that a free people, in order for a free people, or in order for people to be free, they have to be moral. They have to have some moral basis under which they exercise their freedom. Because if you don't have any moral restraint, then you're no longer free. And so even the founding fathers, and this is the reason why they did not want to discourage religion. And we got to understand what they meant by religion. Okay. They didn't have a eclectic, or they didn't have a universal concept of religion that are all inclusive of Hinduism and Islam and the Buddhism and the world religions. No, and we've got to understand the history of this nation. When they're saying religion, they're coming from Europe. They're coming from from England and places in Europe where there are two expressions of religion: Roman Catholicism and Protestantism. So when they're saying religion, that is being defined, that should be defined as Christian denominations.
Right.
Christian denominations. So that's what's in their minds when they're saying religion.
Right.
Okay, they didn't have this all-inclusive concept of all religions in terms of world. Okay, and then I would go on to say that. What did you ask me? You asked me.
Well, yeah. Let me.
If we're going to.
We're coming on a break.
If we're going to be free, how much? If we're going to be, if people are going to enjoy freedom and liberty, the founders said they must be a moral people, because moral people exercise restraint. Moral people have integrity about what it is that they do, and moral people make conscious decisions to act on principle and to do things according to what is right, a standard, objective standard of what is right. And when you remove that moral ethic, when you remove that principle element, and they operate according to bias, they operate according to ideology, you no longer have a press that is restrained.
That freedom should include responsibility, and should include covering stories, even stories you don't like.
Exactly.
What's happening, the way that, freedom is a dangerous responsibility. And the mainstream news media has become an arm of one party, the Democrats.
Yes.
And we are seeing that arm trying to silence and squash those that would bring information that would be to the contrary of their interests.
Sam, that's exactly what
When this party gets, if they get in power, that's it. It's gonna be like the Chinese Communist Party. It could
I'll do you one better.
Go ahead.
What you're talking about is what you saw in Nazi Germany in the 1930s. And like you said, if they get political power, if they get full political power, you've already seen, again, the press has ignored the fact that the former President Barack Obama used higher branches of government in which to spy on political opposition. and to put pressure on political opposition. He used the IRS against Ben Carson, and against conservatives and Republicans and the AP reporter, because he didn't like what he was saying against him. And like you said, if they get full political power, then you know what? What is going to preclude them from the activities of a banana republic, or things that we've seen in Nazi Germany, or things that we've seen, like you said, in communist China, or things which we've seen in these rogue states, where if you disagree with the party in power, you disappear, or you are reassigned to a re-education camp. This is where this nation is headed, and it's headed that direction because the American people have been uninformed by an irresponsible, immoral, unprincipled, deceitful, dishonest press that has abused its constitutional responsibility.
Right.
Then I'll leave it at that.
That's right. Yeah, and they're covering up stories, like we just said, what's just come out with Hunter Biden. And they're, like you said, I said it's barely being covered. You corrected me and saying that it's not.
I have a question, Sam. Are you a Christian?
I'm a Christian.
You're a Christian. Jesus said the truth will set you free. Is that's a true statement, right? Our Lord said the truth will set you free.
Right.
So if the truth will set you free, what will lies, what will deceit, what will corruption do?
Put you in bondage.
Thank you. America is no longer free because it no longer has a press that reports the truth. It no longer has an unbiased press that operates with moral restraint and the integrity to report to the American people what is actually taking place. And therefore, the American people are in bondage. They are enslaved to a press that is biased, deceitful, and dishonest.
Thank you, sir. Well, I hear the music. We're going to take a break. Bryan, when we come back, I want to turn a corner a little bit and talk about the response of some evangelical leaders to this election. So get another bottle of water, and we'll see you in a minute.
Look forward to it.
All right, everybody.